In 2023, we were invited to join the International Institute of Information Design for a week-long series of design workshops in Vienna. Across the week, teachers of the Academy of Fine Art in Katowice, Poland, challenged their understanding of inclusive design and navigated predetermined locations with one question in mind: how do we design for everyone? We met Marta Wikowska, Dean of the Academy, to learn more.
I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Design in Academy of Fine Arts and Design in Katowice. I am responsible for the whole faculty, also the development of our academic teachers. That is why I try to organize different activities, different trainings around universal design. So we were able to gain extra funding from the European Union to organize different trainings, also visits in different cities, countries to see the best practices around universal design, but also to look at those examples with our critic eye and how we can do it more efficient, better, or how it suits to our culture, because we can see also that the inclusive design is also about the culture, inclusive culture, and the perception of some situation, of some services. So yeah, there are a lot of issues around this. It's a very broad topic, and we try to grasp it to give to our students the best knowledge that is right now, I could say, on the market.
Universal design is an approach to a design challenge that includes as many people as possible in all their diversity, in all their requirements of how they might complete a task or what they want to achieve. So universal design is trying to be as inclusive as possible. The basic approach means that you try not to exclude anyone up to a certain point, because you can't include everyone. Yeah? There will always be a point where some requirements are just too specific to create one design that fits all, because I don't want the design to fit nobody because we try to make it fit all. But you have to go through that process, because the starting point is the people you design for in all their diversity.
Yeah, the group this week, so the summer school, which we run every year, we've run since 2013. This time we've been asked to run it for a department for the Academy of Fine Arts in Katowice. So everybody here is a design teacher. So they're quite familiar with a lot of the concepts that we talk about. This week, you've introduced the concept of neurodiversity to them. So the list of universal design issues, such as visual impairment or hearing impairment and mobility, now has neurodiversity tacked onto it. And they're going, oh, that's new. You know, we've been studying these other areas. They're not saying we know all about them, but they've had a lot of input on them. Anybody who's done wayfinding design, for example, is aware of these things. They're not aware of this, and it's new to us. And so we have a lot of questions, and we want to involve them in asking those questions and in shaping a teaching agenda for them, and even a research agenda for the world of information design. But how we can improve the presentation of information so that people who perhaps have problems reading, problems with attention, problems being overwhelmed with information, I'm really sure that whatever we do that will help people who identify or have been diagnosed with neurodivergent issues will help absolutely everybody.
A museum is a place where you go for voluntary. It's an option. It is trying to find a pleasant time. A hospital is completely different. It's obligatory. You can't avoid it. You have to go. And the mindset of people going in there is very different from a pleasant experience that they expect in a museum. In a hospital, frequently go in with very worried. So their mindset of people reading information and moving through, frequently under time pressure, which does not apply to a museum, it is a lot more difficult. And that contrast between a museum, which is for pleasure, and the hospital, that's for an obligation. I hope to make the difference clear.
Off we went to the museum. Along the way, we were instructed to pay attention to everything we interacted with, such as signs, stairs, and transport systems. What information did we need in order to navigate? How do we know? And how is it displayed? A good example of this was the metro ticket machines, located before the escalators down to the train. They are positioned next to the validation machines. Their close proximity means that while you might be checking your ticket and walking towards the escalator, you might miss them. As a tourist, you may think you need to validate your ticket on board or gain access through a barrier. This is an example of some key universal design principles. Affordance, how an object's shape, texture or colour indicates what its use is. Processing, how much information we're able to process while in different situations. And scripting, how our experience defines our expectations of what process or system to follow. After our trip to the museum, we caught up at the Design Forum, our host location for the rest of the workshops. Once inside, we got to know everybody, and we sat in on some thought-provoking workshops led by the International Institute of Information Design. We were absorbed by the presentations, and Carol's presentation on collaborative design raised the question, how do we better include neurodivergent people in the discussion of building inclusive workplaces? Throughout the week, the Academy teachers were given small projects to apply their new ideas. We got to learn plenty about the universal design process. We even gave a small presentation on neurodiversity to help the teachers understand the barriers that neurodivergent people may face. We asked the Institute for more insight.
My hope is that people stop thinking in categories of disability and start thinking about a creative challenge and how to achieve as much as possible by including the people that you design for.
I think the main thing designers should, in general, start from is to listen to the people they work for. And that means that they have to leave their studios and their computers and talk to the people that they actually work for. In this case, in my case, always patients, but people who need a mortgage and struggle to find out where the money comes from and if they can afford it. People who have to deal with contracts, people who have to do with tax services, insurance stuff, student loans. All these things are awful to deal with. And actually it should be pleasant. You get a new house, you get a student loan. And all of these things are in a very negative, drudging, horrible situation where you don't want to spend time on it. And it's even worse when you have to give medicines to your parents or to your children, because that's simply awful. You feel insecure, it's not a pleasant thing to do. Why not? Why can't that be a normal activity that you do as part of your life? And at the moment, it's not at all. These are all very experienced teachers, and they deal with students and new developments every time. And the whole idea of inclusion is part of their life already. So we only can tweak a little bit and motivate a little bit to say, look, if you have students who have neurodivergent symptoms, if you have students who are slightly off the normal scale, how do you deal with that? And the other way around, how do you design for people in that situation? Some design schools claim that about 1/3 of the students are dyslexic, or got dyslexic tendencies. 1/3. that needs to be dealt with, but in a positive way. At the moment, it's not done.
I think there are definitely challenges. One challenge in particular, I think, is various people with various different abilities, approaches, whatever you want to call it, simply need less information better chunked. And it's very, very hard to get writers to write in that way. Organisations have a lot to say. They don't want to leave anything out. They're very defensive. They're very risk averse. They're afraid of not telling people something that will turn out to be important. I think there's a real challenge in going into an organisation and saying, your terms and conditions for your mobile phone are longer than the entire works of Shakespeare or whatever it might be. You know, people aren't going to read them. People aren't going to read 25,000 words. So they say, well, yeah, but our legal department, so it has to be like that. I've worked a lot recently with lawyers, and there's quite a big movement among lawyers for clearer design and shorter documents and more usable ones. And the philosophy of this is called proactive law, and the idea is instead of a legal document being aimed at the judge or in litigation when it all goes wrong, to stop litigation by making it so easy to understand, everybody understands what the contract is they're signing, and it's all fine. This is gaining some traction, and I have managed to work with companies like Shell and Airbus and one or two others to come up with hugely simplified legal contracts, for business contracts effectively. Now these aren't necessarily aimed at people with special needs or people such as dyslexia or people with low literacy, but they are a precedent that you then say, well, look, Shell has managed to reduce the length or the number of words, but also the content of a lot of these documents, which actually govern quite big deals. It's halved its negotiation time. So customers are satisfied they don't have arguments about the detail which no one understood. No, you can do it for your mobile phone contract. You can do it for, for your electricity bill, that kind of thing. Very often in design we talk about trade-offs. You know, when you do one thing, you lose another. And actually, you alluded to 14-point type just now, and was a recommendation from the Royal National Institute for Blind People that all types should be 14-point. But of course, if everything's in 14-point, you've lost layout, you've lost white space. It's very, very difficult to have a visual structure with headings that stand out when everything's enormous, but still on A4 paper. So that's one of the classic trade-offs. I'm sure that we can develop ways of communicating and ways of testing communications that perhaps ride the neurodiversity kind of, is it a bandwagon? That's possibly unfair, but ultimately end up helping everybody, but help to persuade large organisations that they need to be doing this.